I went in to watch The Flash expecting a very bad movie. I was not looking forward to it at all, but I came out of it pleasantly surprised, but still disappointed and having a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. So, to give a quick rundown of the film, Ezra Miller, The Flash, I know everything that's been going on with Ezra Miller in them and all the shit that happened. I know. I went and saw this movie in theaters. It was a family thing. It was me wanting to go with my family, and family bought tickets, invited me out. Of course, I'm not going to deny them of that. Tickets were already bought, and so on and so forth. So I went out to watch it in theaters. You know, I like going out to theaters, so it was fun in that department because I got to spend time with people that I love. But other than that, the despite the drama that's been going on and looking at this movie from a movie perspective, it was all okay. We start off first with Ezra Miller basically playing the Flash, having the whole, I can't stand still, going through all that. And I kind of like the analogy that it seems to be either based really heavily on something like ADHD or neurodivergency, which I found really interesting. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it certainly seemed to be giving that idea, especially through certain parts of the movie later on. But yeah, cutting back to that, it starts with Ezra Miller, the Flash, basically fixing problems with Batman, Ben Affleck, and then over time, he's uh late to I think it was court or working at Star Labs, I think it was, or the Star City like police department, forensic department, so on and so forth, and working through with that, trying to get new evidence to um, free his dad from prison and show that he was wrongfully accused and so on, and going through a conversation with Iris West. The movie feels very like paced out, but it is very much just, hey, I want to get my dad back. I figured out how to do it. Go back in time. I fuck shit up. They're into the movie. And this movie seems heavily based off of Flashpoint. Like, it just seems verbatim Flashpoint for very many plot points throughout the movie that we'll get to because I have an entire list here. And I'm trying to really describe the plot of the movie, even with spoilers, and it's just, I want to release my dad from prison, go back in time, I fuck things up, fixed it, realize that I can't do it, go back, fix it, and then come back to the main timeline. Oops, things are still fucked up, but, mom's dead. At least the planet is safe. And that's the plot of the movie. That's how it starts, middle, end. But getting into deeper things with that is, in the beginning, it sucked. It just did. The whole thing with the babies getting saved by the Flash and him eating in midair, it felt very comic booky, but it also felt like too comic booky. Like, it could have been done way better. Obviously, the Flash running I still think is really stupid. I don't like the way that he runs. I know the whole thing like ice skating and so on, but like, come on. You can do it way better than that. I did like the idea of where everything seems distorted around him because he's approaching the speed of light. I thought that was really cool. And then how like each step in his stride, he's gone like 100 miles. I think that was really cool. But yeah, in the beginning, CGI sucked. It was just really bad. And then once they go back in time, I want to mention that I love the little, like, thing of where he's running in place and he sees all the events around him. I thought that was a very cool interpretation of, like, the timeline and so on and so forth, because you're looking at it from the Speed Force perspective of where it's almost, like, omnipotent and so on. And him running in place is almost analogous and in reference to the cosmic treadmill from the comics. And I think that's really cool. I thought that was a very neat detail to add in to the movie. Oh my God! I can't believe I forgot. This review's all over the place. But going back, I thought that Ben Affleck was good as Batman. I thought he was cool. He did some really, really sick things. And then there is some stuff that he says and does like throughout the movie. So Wonder Woman shows up. She was awesome. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman is just always awesome. Her theme plays and it's great. But he touches the lasso of truth and he's like, yeah, my parents, and like he starts like trauma dumping. And he's like, I could solve all of poverty in Gotham. And he's like, damn it, get this thing off me. And I verbally said in the theater, he wouldn't say that. Like, sure, yeah, it's funny, but Batman is well known to have resistance to the lasso of truth. And solve all of poverty in Gotham. Yeah, he practically does. He tries his best with the Wayne Foundation to solve all of Gotham's problems. It's just the fact that there are other corporations actively impeding and working against him and keeping Gotham in poverty. Like, Bruce Wayne, outside of the cowl, does so much for Gotham. Like, an insane amount for Gotham. Creating orphanages, creating hospitals, creating things for a homeless, creating foundations for criminals that, just so happen to get arrested by Batman to be put on the better path and to be reintegrated into society so that they don't have to rely on crime as a source of income due to society putting them in that standpoint in the first place. That's what Bruce Wayne does. Bruce Wayne is a hero in and out of cowl despite being a billionaire. But yeah, very much inspired by Flashpoint, both the comic and the animated DCAU movie, which I think is really cool. We get to the second timeline, and Barry 2 is pretty annoying, but that makes sense, right? It's supposed to show that without the trauma that he went through, he becomes kind of just like an ass and really, really immature. Also, the fact that he's 19 at this point. Then we get to Michael Keaton, and then the whole like spaghetti, understanding that it's not just branching timelines, it's intersections of multiple timelines on a scale, and everything is just messed up in a bowl of spaghetti with Parmesan and tomato sauce. So yeah, Michael Keaton in this movie brought his A game. Even if you say that he phoned it in, it was still Michael Keaton as Batman. He was fucking awesome in this movie. There are scenes with Michael Keaton as Batman in this movie that are so cool. So cool. How he crawls around the big, like, Kryptonian guy. I was like, oh my God. POV, you're fighting Arkham Batman. Like, that's what it felt like. Like, it felt like you're watching 8K footage of Arkham Batman trying to fight a Titan from Arkham City or Arkham Knight, right? And him flying around and then quickly fighting through all these goons. It was so cool. Then we're introduced to Kara Zor-El, and Kara Zor-El, oh my God, she's so cool. She is so cool. I love her character. I love the fact that she doesn't immediately want to help people and then wants to go to Zod and be like, yo, I'm here. Like, let's leave. And then she sees Zod being on the warpath, and she's like, well, that's not... No. Goes back, helps Barry get back his powers, because obviously he lost them early in the movie. I'm sure that you've either seen it or just want a rundown of what happens in the movie. But yeah, that happens. But a lot of her scenes are super cool, pun intended, because there are certain interpretations of Superwoman or Supergirl or Kara Zor-El that are stronger than Superman, at least for a while, right? Whenever she first gets to Earth, she was stronger at that point than Kal was at that age than he was before. Whether you want to say it was mental blocks, or she absorbed sun better, or she was older, or so on, or she grew up on Krypton instead of growing up on Earth, so it just works differently for her. Doesn't really matter. That's what was going on there. It's really cool. It doesn't seem like she was stronger than Superman because she was really struggling against Zod throughout the movie, but she was still just putting in so much work into really pressuring Zod. And then I found the idea that Kryptonians were kind of good to really be kind of strange, because Kara was like, that's not what Kryptonian stands for, hope and all that stuff. But you could put that up to the multiverse being different and the timeline being different because of the whole thing that Michael Keaton Batman explains earlier in the film. Or you can describe it as in, yeah, Clark was inherently going to be good with Kryptonian DNA, but it was the humanity that then led him into being that symbol of hope that he was even more so with Ma and Pa Kent. So he was already kind of predisposed to it, but needed to be leaded, because without that, he would have had that anger and that frustration and that rage that Kara had. And I really like that. Also, with the interpretation from Man of Steel that Kryptonians were like colonizers and colonized in the ancient past tons and tons of planets through like war and shit, but then wasn't afterwards. But I like the hope motif. The final fight with Zod is cool. The final fight with the Flashes are cool. And, Reverse Flash vibrating into Kryptonians and killing them. I thought that was sick. Because obviously Barry doesn't really have a no-kill rule. He just has a punch real hard, hope they go down rule, since most of the people that he fights are speedsters and they can handle him, Also, different timeline, might as well, got to get through this. I just want to also mention, earlier in the movie, we see Barry get pushed out of like the cosmic treadmill, and it looks to be like a monster of the Speed Force. I immediately thought it was the Black Racer. I thought it was the Black Flash, death. But then Barry 2 gets hit with the spike, and I was like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. It's that Barry 2 is Savitar CW Flash. That's what's going on. And that's what happens. And during the final fight, everything just kind of ends. Like, they go back in time. Barry 2 kind of gets obsessed with wanting to save everybody and keeps going back in time, like, over millions and millions of years, comes back, and he's, like, all different and everything. And Barry 2 sacrifices himself, thus killing off, like, Savitar Black Flash, Purple Lightning Flash that was going around in the timeline. And he just, like, disappears. So the movie just kind of ends that fight and rushes through it. There is no final bouts, right? And then we get to see a bunch of cameos of all the multiverse kind of collapsing on itself. We see the OG Superman, which is kind of weird because that actor's life was kind of ruined by Superman. And then we get to see Christopher Reeve Superman and his Supergirl. And then we get to see Nick Cage fighting a Brainiac spider, which is really cool that we get to see Nick Cage finally, see the idea of him being Superman with the long hair and everything, and in the suit that he was in with the behind-the-scenes footage and test footage. I think that was really cool. That was really weird, but really cool. And then Barry goes back to the beginning. He had changed the timeline in just enough that his dad looks up in the security footage, thus relinquishing him because of new tech with Wayne Tech, and his dad's free from prison. But guess what? It's not Ben Affleck Batman now, it's George Clooney, which leads me to believe that everything in the past was changed, meaning that Batman and Robin were the events of that world's Batman, which I find really, really funny. But yeah, DCEU ended better than it began, I would guess you could say, because the movie wasn't the best, but it also wasn't the greatest or worst. I'm looking forward to seeing what James Gunn has to do with this like new 52 kind of thing with the DCEU. It's kind of funny that the comics went through the same thing that the movies are doing now. It's really funny. Looking forward to Blue Beetle. Hopefully that's good. But yeah, let me know your thoughts of the Flash down below. I'll give it a solid rating of a 6.9 out of 10. So yeah. Unironically, in the middle ground, mid. That sort of thing. Yeah, let me know what you thought down below. Are you excited for the future of the DCEU? I am hopeful, but cautious. So yeah,